And then I will go.
Okay, so Straight Talk, we're back. And welcome all of our viewers. I'm glad to see you again. Or should I say, I'm glad you can see me again. So we have a special show today, special to me personally, but I know it's going to be special to you. I want to admonish you one more time. You got to share this. You know, we can't get this out unless you share it. So share this to everybody you know and encourage them to share this so we can share it, have this conversation, not only in the Commonwealth, but across the nation. So this is very important for what we are trying to do. And I want to encourage you to do the same thing because this isn't about me, it's also about you, right? So get out here and do this sort of thing. We got to have a conversation. Some people hate this Zoom and this Facebook stuff, but I love it because it gives us a chance to communicate on levels that we are not able to do it sometimes. So I do want to raise the issue before I introduce my special guest today, and that is a lot continues to go on. You know, we're in legislative session, and on Monday and Tuesday, those are the last days of the session. And some people say they think some things are dead because it's 2 more days left. Fact of the matter is, that's when it gets really tricky. You never know what raises from the dead in the last 2 days of legislative session. So I'm gonna have to turn all my attention to that, but I want you to turn your attention to it as well. And then after that, a week later on the African American Initiative, we'll have a panel and we will disintegrate. That means destroy, right? No, we shall actually get into each of these issues that I think are important to the community. So I want you keep a lookout for that particular piece as well. And then one last piece I want to get into is Georgia. You know, some people think it's all about Georgia. Well, it's about Georgia, but it's about the United States of America. I think they have identified about 43 states where Republican politicians are in suppression mode, unprecedented, perhaps. I guess it can't be any more unprecedented than slavery. But in Jim Crow, I don't know. This is major. So this is something we need to really keep an eye out because it not only affects Georgia, it affects all of us. And even though we did something on voters, um, the voter situation in Kentucky, keep an eye on that. You ask yourself, why didn't you see the same thing that you saw in Georgia? And we'll talk about that in the future. Now, I just got to tell you, there's only one way to start this. There's only one way to start this, and I got to go for it. Formation. Say it firmly with no hesitation. Concern for your tears, recently went on vacation. We are unbothered by your hating and condemnation. It's simply confirmation. Ladies and gentlemen, Hannah Drake.
Thank you so much, Senator Neal, for having me today.
Well, thank you so much for joining. I tell you, it's such a thrill for me, and I'm sure it's a thrill for those who are viewing. I guess it gets down to who is Hannah Drake?
I am a writer and a poet. Most people know me in Louisville as a poet. And then after the election of Donald Trump, like I felt like I needed to say more than I could put in a poem. So I started my blog. And I had no idea at the time that it would reach so many people. It's reached several million people now have read it around the world.
Just several million? Okay. I think I'm trying to get there, but go ahead.
But I think, you know, and you and I have discussed this, but I really do feel that I was put on this, I know I was put on this earth to write. I always wanted to be a writer and a poet, and I always loved words. But I certainly think that I'm here for this time to say something that I believe the nation needs to hear. Yeah.
Well, I think you used some words, I'm probably not using the correct words, that you hear to sort of shake it up a little bit.
You know, I tell people all the time, I'm not writing or performing to entertain you. If you're entertained, that's great. But I'm trying to weave into what I'm saying, like this knowledge and history of the world. I'm trying to change the very way that you think. Not just like, oh, that's a nice poem and that's cute, and then you go on about your business. I'm trying to write in such a way that it sits with you, it marinates in your spirit, it makes you think differently. And so when someone comes back to me and says, "You thank you for that," because it did change the way that I thought about this, then I've done my job. That's when I know I've done what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, I guess the viewing audience is probably saying, what is Neal trying to do with this poetry thing he's starting out with? Well, I got to tell you, folks, I'm wearing this. That's
Yeah.
Formation right there, Hannah L. Drake. And you got to understand, if you read this piece, it's going to do something to you. And I tell you, it's just so impressive, Hannah. I just got to say that I think it's going to continue. I think the first time it was out, when you just started, it was hitting about 20,000.
Yes.
Then and now that number, what? Any idea?
I have no idea how many times that poem has been shared or viewed or have been requested to read it. I wrote, you know what's funny? I tell people this all the time. I was at a rehearsal for a show I was doing, and immediately the poem just dropped in my head. And it was effortless. It just came right to me. And on my phone, so I was still at this rehearsal, and on my phone, I just typed the last word of every line. I knew exactly how the poem was supposed to go together. It was like God just said, here is this poem I need you to put out to the world. And I tell people all the time, like, I'm the vessel that this message is going to come through. And so I came home that night, and it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I said, oh, let me type up this poem real quick. And I put it on Facebook, and I didn't think anything else of it. And my sister called and she said, Hannah, I think you need to stop and copyright that poem immediately. And she had never called me about copywriting any poem. And so I did it that night. And by the time I woke up, the poem had went around the world.
Wow.
And I had no idea. You know, you can't pick what will go viral or what will resonate with people. It was the first poem that I wrote that ever went viral. And I wrote it in 2016. And here it is, 2021. I'm still reciting the poem because what's happening, what I wrote about in the poem, is still happening today. Yeah. So it's relevant today. And sadly, I feel it'll be relevant, 20, 30 years from now. It can still do the same thing. It'll still go around the world because we, in America loves to go around the same mountain over and over again. So,
well, as I commented earlier, you did that in 2016, but in 1950, 1920, it was relevant, but you captured it in such a way that few people could capture that. In fact, a lot of your work has been such that I understand that you were selected by the Muhammad Ali Center to be a daughter of greatness.
Yes.
But what really struck me was a reference by one of the individuals that was enamored with your talent and your poem. They put you in some very rare company.
Yeah.
They were equating some of your work with that of Maya Angelou. My goodness.
Yeah. Such an honor. I remember, and this is the power of seeing yourself in the world. This is why representation matters. It's not just something people saying, you put a hashtag and like hashtag representation matters. It does, because I remember as a child, well, I might have been like a teenager-ish, but it was Bill Clinton's inauguration, and I see this tall, beautiful Black woman with this fur coat on, and I'm like, who is that? And she starts reading on the pulse of the morning, and I thought, whatever it is that she's doing, that's what I want to do. And of course, it was Maya Angelou, and my mom started bringing me her poetry, and I just knew as soon as I saw her, I can be that. And I hope, as I've gotten older and continue to write, that young people look at me and say, I can be that. Like you can be a voice in this world, and don't be afraid of that. When I saw Amanda Gorman at Biden's inauguration, it made me think of Maya Angelou. I was so proud that here's this young, a 22-year-old Black girl, you know, a beautiful, beautiful Black girl that had the courage to stand and speak truth to power after what we saw January 6th.
Yeah.
And she has this weight. And this is as a poet, like Nina Simone said, you know, an artist's duty is to reflect the times. And it would have been easy for her to get up there and like write a poem that's gonna make everybody feel good, you know. But as a artist, she knew that I must address this issue. I must say something about this, especially when I've been given this huge stage. How can you not? And so when people ask me about that, or you're performing somewhere, and I tell them it's okay to be afraid. Say it afraid, write it afraid. Even if your knees are knocking and your voice is quivering, that doesn't matter. What matters is the message. And there are many times that I write things that, and people think, oh, Hannah, you're so fearless. No, I'm afraid. You know, I am afraid. I wrote a blog last year in September that was addressed to the CEO of Churchill Downs. And I said, this is a David and Goliath story because I'm a poet. And this is a person that's over one of the most lucrative organizations, not just in Louisville, but in the state of Kentucky. And I'm going to challenge this person to use their influence to speak about issues that are going on all around Churchill Downs. And not just around it, but within it. And I was afraid, but I knew that I had to do this, that it was bigger than just me being afraid. And so I was willing to count the cost. And the cost didn't matter to me. If that backfired and I had to take the backlash for addressing this organization, then I was willing to do that. Because what was important to me, and this is how I knew that this organization had the power. I'll never forget this, Senator Neal. This was at like the height of the coronavirus, right? And we couldn't gather in groups of more than 10, and we had to wear a mask all the time. And this like when it was first happening, like March, April-ish. And you know, I was in my house on lockdown. I was following the rules and I'm not gonna gather. And then lo and behold, I was watching on TV and on the internet that Churchill Downs was still going to have Derby with 20,000 people. And I thought, doesn't make any sense to me. How can I not gather in groups of 10, but this organization can bring in 20,000 people? And immediately I knew that organization has the power because they were able to get around that rule of no one else can gather, but somehow this organization can have 20,000 people. And so I knew that organization has the power. And if they have that much power, then use it for good. Use your influence to impact what is happening in this city. You saw what happened with Breonna Taylor. You saw the unrest in this city. You saw what was happening around the nation. Then what are you going to do with that much power to influence that and to change this city? And so I had to say something about it.
Well, let me tell you, there's a lot I can take away from what you just said, but there's two things that you said, that two takeaways I have from what you said, I think extremely important, and both of them are about fear, about anxiety, about standing up to power, and what that means. So one is how, what is your commitment to, and what is it that you conquer in terms of doing what you know you must do as a human being, maybe with someone else, to stand up to that which you know is wrong. That's awesome to do. It's just like those protesters that went down there with Breonna Taylor. Some people say, oh, these just some folks out there just getting off some sort of way. But hey, look, I've been in some protests. That's frightening stuff.
Yeah.
Just to go and be in the midst of it is frightening stuff.
Yes.
So that's one level of what my takeaway on what you're saying. But the other one is this, something my father told me once. I was speaking. All my life I've been speaking in some way in front of crowds. And he used to say to me, he said, because I told him I was nervous about something one time, and he said, that's good. He said, because if you didn't, something was wrong
Yes.
with what you're doing. Don't you know that fear and anxiety is the tool you use to sharpen your message and
Yes.
your presentation? He said the trick is don't let it control you. Use
Yeah.
it.
Don't let it stop you.
Yeah.
You
You
just work beyond the fear. Even in protesting, here we are in the midst of COVID-19, but many of us, hundreds of us, thought here is this virus that we didn't know how it was going to play out. It's impacting Black people. We should not be gathering in groups at all. However, what happened in the city was worth the cost of
yeah.
us gathering and trying to change something. That's how important it is. But see, Black people, you always have these choices. It's rock in a hard place. Like, do I stay home because of this virus, or do I go out because Black people are being killed in their homes?
Yeah.
You know, this heavy choice you have to make. But
Yeah.
Black people are always dealing with these heavy choices. Yeah.
Well, I take my hat off to those who made the choice. I got to say that I probably made the choice in one situation and I walked away with a little COVID. But you know, that was my choice.
Yeah.
I had to do what I have to do. I agree completely with what you just said. Let me say this. I just think it's important that in terms of what you do and in terms of this poem formation, get to the roots of that. Why formation? You talked about it came to you, you wrote about it, and you know, it was like an epiphany of some sort. But tell me what that really represented to you in terms of putting that piece out here.
You know, I certainly, in the beginning of the poem, wanted to talk about this Black excellence, all of these wonderful things that Black people are. You know, we're the foundation of creation, you know, and just for us being unbothered by all of this condemnation that Black people get all the time, you know, that we understand first who we are. And then for many, you know, white people, they just don't understand. Why are Black people mad? Why are you angry? Why are you upset? As if they don't know the history. That's another thing I can talk about. But as if they don't know the history of what has happened to Black people in America. And so I wanted to tell them, if you are curious as to why Black people are mad, here are just a few examples. That poem could have went on forever, but these are just a few examples of things that have happened throughout history.
Yeah.
And I tell two things. One, I tell writers, especially young poets, read and know your history. That entire poem is just historical. And you can't put something into a poem like that if you don't know history, if you've not read, if you don't have facts to back up things. And then also, you know, I wrote a blog at the beginning of February this year that white people need to have a White History Month, right? And you need to learn the history of what has happened in America, what has been done to Black people. And when you mentioned Georgia, I was talking to my daughter yesterday and just appalled by what's happening in Georgia with voting. It's happening across the nation. We see what's happening here in our legislature. But I told my daughter, you would think by now that this nation would understand that Black people aren't going anywhere. You've enslaved us. You have lynched us. Jim Crow stopped us from voting, took our land, so many things, and we are still here. Yeah. We are not going anywhere. And I know it may be frustrating, but you will not beat us. So you would think by now this nation would say, clearly this is a people that simply is not going to give up, that are resilient. We've done everything we can to do to them, and still they're here, and still they're fighting. So at what point is this nation going to realize we're not quitting and we're not going anywhere? and we're going to be here. And you want to try to stop Black people from voting, we're going to vote anyways. We're going to figure it out, because Black people always figure it out, period. And you would think this nation would be tired, and it would click that everything you've tried to do didn't work. It's not going to work. So at this point, you would think, let it go.
Oh, wait a minute, stop. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to stop now. I have to go and fight this fight. She just inspired me. I got to go out of here. I'll be back in just a minute. I'm just kidding. Wow. Just how I feel. We're not going backwards. It's a reflection of our strength, not our weakness.
Yes.
The resiliency, despite every deficiency that you could describe in many of our communities, the resolve is still there.
We're still here. We are not going anywhere. Get used to it.
Let's transition a little bit. Woman, that's my other T-shirt. I stand with Black women.
Yeah.
I couldn't wear them both, so But this is Women History Month.
Yes.
Okay, and you do a lot in that area from that perspective for obvious reasons. But I'm gonna try to do something here. I've never done this before, so my viewing audience knows my deficiencies. So you just have to go along with me on this. So I'm gonna try to put something on the screen, if you don't mind, that I think is emblematic of your work.
Thank you.
And I hope I do this right. So let me see. We'll see. There we go. Okay, we're gonna do it. This is a piece. Can you see it?
Yep.
This is a piece called "Black Women Do Not Exist to Save You." So I'm gonna hit that and we'll talk about it on the other side. Okay.
Admittedly, I have said trust Black women a million times, because as a Black woman, I believe we hold the solutions to so many problems in this world. However, over time, the mood and meaning of this hashtag started to shift for me. Trust Black women is now becoming synonymous with allow Black women to do the work that white people do not want to do. Trust Black women is now becoming synonymous with allow Black women to do the work for little to no pay. Trust Black women is now becoming synonymous with allow Black women to generate creative work and allow white people to take the credit. Trust Black women is now becoming synonymous with allow Black women to just clean up our messes. Let me be clear. Black people, particularly Black women, do not exist to save white America from itself. Black people, particularly Black women, were not placed on this earth to rescue white people from themselves. To save yourself, you must take a long, hard look in the mirror, and you have to put in the work. Black women have done our share of the work. Black women have carried the load until our backs have been bent in agony. Black women have smiled when all we wanted to do was cry. You see, Black women are tired. Black women will no longer play wet nurse to white America. You see, at some point, you have to get off the breast and just grow up. We cannot nurse you through racial discord. We cannot hold your hand through fighting racism, because both our hands are too busy fighting to save our lives and the lives of our families. Throughout history, we have left breadcrumbs of our resistance. We have written the playbook on how to fight for liberation. Black women have drawn the blueprint. It is time that you move from just hashtags to action. While I appreciate that you want to trust Black women, start learning how to trust yourself and do the work that will be required to shake a nation.
Well, tell us what got you going on that one.
I believe that was after the election. I think it may have been Alabama, I believe, but it could be Alabama, it could be any town USA. Black people, but particularly Black women, will step in and rescue this nation from itself. We see what happened in Georgia. Thank God for Georgia, or we would not have the control that we do right now, but Black women, on my shirt, it says, fix it, Black girl, that Black women are always the cleanup woman, come in, we're going to tear it down. Black women build it back up. We're going to ruin it. Black women, you come in and fix it. We're going to continue to vote in a way that's going to harm ourselves. Then Black women, you get us out of this mess. And, you know, a lot of people and a lot of white women read my blog. And, you know, and they put these hashtags like trust Black women, listen to Black women. And then we saw with this election. So we have the 53% of white women that voted for Trump when Trump was first elected. And then we see in this election, not just 53%, but 55% voted for Trump. So you just increase that, right? And so at what point are you truly going to listen to Black women and not just listen, but do the work? This is the problem. Two things. One, a lot of white women want to get back to brunch, right? So they are resisting until they can get back to like yoga or brunch or go to the movies, and we don't talk about race. And so I remember I was on Twitter and this woman said, so if Trump decides to run again, at what point are we going to start protesting and resisting again? And I said, why'd you stop? See, we don't get to take a day off, you know, because racism doesn't take a day off. Racism is not one person. It's not like you remove Trump and then the whole world is perfect now and nobody's racist. Clearly, we see what's still happening, right? And so, but a lot of people thought, okay, Biden's in office and all will be well now, and we will all get along and everything will be okay. And now we see mass shootings and this, that, and the third, because nothing has changed. You've not gotten to the root of the problem, but you want to resist your way back to brunch, right? You want to resist your way back to comfort, you know, but you need to learn how to resist your way to change, not brunch. That's not what it's about. And the other part of that, and I wrote about this too on my blog, I wrote a blog called Karen Is You, right? And a lot of people think, well, I'm not Karen because I'm not, you know, I don't have a tiki torch and I'm not in this KKK hood. And, you know, I would never say the N word, but, you know, you really need to challenge some of the way that you think. And I tell people, Karen is your police officer and your doctor, your neighbor, your sister, your mom. And I said, if you keep looking at who this woman is and you look very closely, you may in fact find out that Karen is you. You know, and a lot of people don't want to admit that. And so I think when we talk about Black women, I think a lot of white women need to do some soul searching.
Yeah.
And well, especially during this month, do you want to, you know, this is a difficult month for me because it's Women's Month, but I cannot and will not ever sit here and pretend as if many white women throughout history and currently have not been co-conspirators with white men when it comes to racism and oppressing Black people. That's reality.
Yeah. Well, I think you pulled the cover from over that, you know, and you know, if you really stop and think about that, I mean, you would have to assume that the white man and his counterpart, the white woman, as a unit, has a tendency to work together.
Yep.
On things. Yeah. And that's the reality. It's not like that happens all the time, because I've seen this philosophical and practical splits between white men and white women as well. So it's not always that, but certainly you're going to see a high concentration of it. And I think that election proves it with respect to that. Well, let me ask you. Let me ask this. Since we've gone there, let's get even more controversial.
Let's just go. Keep going.
Now I'm going into Black women and Black men.
Yes.
What's your view? What are you seeing? Where are our strengths and where are our weaknesses?
You know, if you and I've written hundreds of blogs and made hundreds of comments on, or thousands of comments on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And I have made a conscious effort to not write anything to dog Black men. Yeah. I think Black men get that all the time in America. It doesn't mean you don't hold Black men accountable, but as a Black woman, I don't feel like I'm going to write things to speak disparagingly about Black men. I think we need to work together. And I think America and this nation has done an excellent job at trying to divide Black people. They divided our families. You know, we weren't allowed to get married. You know, we could be married and they're going to sell one of us to another a slave owner. You know, they've stolen, divided families up like they were just dividing pie, like slicing up pie, and you get a piece and you get a piece. And we saw, even when a family may have needed some financial assistance, well, you can't get the assistance if a man is in the home. You know, and so they've done an excellent job at creating this division. And I think some of us latch on to that. But we need to realize, as Black men and Black women, that we work together as a team and we won't be defeated. When I think about Breonna Taylor, we think about Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, and whether people like it or not, we all heard the 911 call. Kenneth Walker was simply defending his family, defending his woman. And so many times throughout history, Black men have never been allowed to do that. You know, back during slavery, Black women just be raped, and their husband couldn't say anything about it, just had to deal with that. You know, Black women continually abused and nothing could be done. And if you did say something, you end up dead. And so we see that then, and we see it currently, where they vilified, arrested this man who was doing something that 9 times out of 10, anyone would do. You come home, I don't know who you are, I'm going to try to defend myself and my family. Like, you have an actual law that says that's okay. But yet somehow, when it was a Black man trying to defend his woman, then the law went out the window. Then the castle doctrine really didn't matter anymore, because wait, we got to arrest him. But the fact of the matter remains, that's what happened. And he was trying to defend himself and his woman, and that's okay. Black men should feel empowered to protect and defend Black women. And here's the thing, let me add this little spice on it too. In America, and I wrote about this too, white women are always allowed to be the victim. Black women, you have to be strong, you have to be the mule, you have to be able to carry the load. You're not allowed to break down. You're not allowed to cry. And so when people put out this narrative, strong Black woman, I reject that sometimes, because Black women should be allowed to cry and have moments of weakness and moments of sadness and not have to carry the load. I want me and my partner to share the load, but they have set it up in a way where they have made Black women the super women and put on your cape and once again fix it for us, But when white women in America are always the victim, always allowed to be the victim. Black women rarely, if ever, are allowed to be the victim. And I think that narrative impacts how Black women are seen in the world. And we're not always strong. Yeah. And that's why you have Black women, we dropping dead of strokes, we dropping dead of heart disease, we got all these medical issues because we're carrying all this weight. And we don't feel that it's okay to say, I can put this down and say, help me, or I'm tired. I'm tired of putting my life on the back burner to help you. I'm tired of fixing this. When do Black women just get a break in this world? When can we rest? Yeah. And y'all fix it. Yeah. Why we always gotta fix? We didn't mess it up. Yeah. Y'all did, so you fix it.
Yeah. So I wonder, and I'll be interested in getting your response on that, given what you just said. There's this, even during the protest piece, there's this piece about Black women, that strong Black women out there. And my response to it has been, to fellow Black men, is that this is something we must support.
Yes.
We must confirm, we must celebrate. That's not like Black women are out there. That's like the stronger Black women are, the stronger Black men are. Step up, brothers. Let's demonstrate that. That's the way I'm doing it. Tell me what's wrong.
Well, I there's nothing wrong with that. And even dealing with the protests, what I love to see down there, and it's been many black men that have been down there.
Right.
But they will always support, for the most part that I've seen, pushing a Black woman forward. But we right here behind y'all. We got you. I think that's what this nation needs to see. That Black women are not just out here by ourselves. We can be out front and be strong, but we got a whole line of an army behind us that you're not just going to keep killing us. You're not just going to keep pushing us around. You're not going to keep tear gassing us. That's not okay. And so I think this nation needs to see that we have Black men standing behind us in power, and they can support us. They can. I remember I was at a protest and someone had pulled out a gun, and a young Black man grabbed me and said, "Miss Hannah, don't go over there. I will go." You know, and he said, "Don't put yourself." And I thought, here this young guy is, couldn't be more than 25 years old, but he was willing to step forward to protect me. Yeah. I think Black women have not had that in decades. Yeah. That at times we don't even know how that feels. Yeah. To say somebody else can, and even, you know, and I know I'm right. That's what Malcolm X said. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. And I think Black women just want to know, it's not that you have to be out front and take my glory and whatever the case, but just that I know you got my back. I know Black men are out here that will ride for me, that we're not out here alone. We're not fighting alone. Whether they may not ever be in front, but I know I could look over my shoulder and they right there. And I love that.
As strong as that message is, I want to make a declaration here today that there are Black men that support their Black women.
Yes.
And they have throughout history.
Yes, and we love to see it.
And Black men, I think this thing of supporting Black women, asserting themselves, and Black men playing the role of protection or engaging as partners or whatever, I think it's part of our strength. We just got to build on it, because all these forces out there trying to, as you pointed out, divide and crush us, etc. Just as another piece, and then I want to go on to another piece that you did, and that is the white. I noticed in this protest piece, a lot of white folks that came to me. I got all kind of calls. From white folks? What do I do? What should I do? You know, I said, huh? Are we living in two universities here? Wait,
right.
You have a brain, you know? Yeah. And they had a sort of a reticence to step forward because they felt like they were impinging upon the Black leadership or Black whatever. And I reacted to it this way, and I just want to get your opinion on it. My reaction to it was, well, step forward. Yeah. We want partners. We want folks to work with us. Blah, blah, blah. This is not about you being behind us. It's be beside us. Yeah. And that was my reaction. What do you think about that? Maybe it's situational. I don't know.
It could be situational, but here's the thing. Because of how this nation is just set up, it is what it is. This does not change without white people. Yeah. You know, and as Black people, it does not change. Because here's the thing, as Black people, we may think we're not the majority. We're just not. And the people that are in positions of power to write the policies, to change things. We saw what happened in Georgia. No women, no Black women, not even a Black man in that room when they signed that new voter bill into law. And so this doesn't change without white people. Yeah. Because white people are the ones that are in positions of power.
Let me give you the perfect example of that. And that is the Kentucky legislature. Think about it. I'm a Democrat. Yeah. And in my chamber, there are 38 senators. And guess how many of them are Democrats? 8. Guess how many of them are Black? 2. In the House of Representatives, there's 100 legislators. Guess how many of them are Democrats? 25. Wow. And guess how many are Black? 6. Okay.
And so it's impossible to change anything fundamentally with just Black people.
And that's what folks that send us there must understand. Yeah. They have to be part of what we do.
It has to be.
Yes.
There is no other way. And in fact, I want white people in power to stand with me to change this.
And we must challenge them.
Yes.
For change. Okay.
Right.
This thank you. You're making me feel good. I guess I can leave again. Now, okay.
There's no other way. It doesn't
This is
work
hard stuff.
way.
This is hard stuff, dealing with reality and aspiration. And the fact of the matter is that to get to anything you aspire for, you must deal with reality. It's not automatic. You got to find a way, a pathway, etc. Let me post something else up. Let's see some more of your talent here that I think might be interesting to everyone. And let me see if I can do it right again. Boy, I'm amazed at I'm just amazed. Let me see if I'm gonna get this right. So this one is, let's see, what is this one? Okay, I got it. This one is We Were Here, is entitled.
Search for me among blades of bluegrass, dig for memories of me in fields of hemp, trying to discover names among unmarked graves. I drank a mixture of simple sip bourbon and mint leaves poured over crushed ice served in chilled highball glasses you see here in the home of the greatest 2 minutes in sports. They call them mint juleps. Perhaps that is the magical concoction that will allow me to find home. So I sip unfamiliar traditions, trying to adapt to a history that is not mine. Feels like ill-fitting shoes on my feet. With every step that I take back in history, there is pain. Where are the women that look like me? Their memories and contributions to history often hidden, obscured, concealed. But these women are not figments of my imagination. There can be no full telling of women's suffrage until we speak about the woman that suffered simply to have the same rights. Because this is America, the land of the free, which should include me. Because ain't I a woman? Ain't we women? You see, we were here. We have always stood on the front lines and the sidelines. We've endured humiliation and embarrassment. We have stood naked on blocks and watched the world pick apart our bodies and put them on display. We were sold, but we were here. We were shamed for our appearance. We were subjected to playing wet nurse to your babies when we couldn't even take care of our own. We were the conductor on the Underground Railroad. We were here. We ironed the shirts and pressed the pants, kept a clean home, all while fighting off the KKK. We made the signs and provided slogans that would change the world. We endured the hits of dogs, the brutal force of water hoses, and the hits from billy clubs. We were here. We assisted this nation in exploring the universe. We started movements that changed the very course of history. We stood backstage as the world demanded that a man be center stage, garnering all the credit for our work. You see, we buried our sons and our daughters too soon. We endured medical malpractice as the medical community used our bodies for Frankenstein research. We became the face of a movement fueled by our children's blood. We were pioneers for freedom. We stood up to the system. We organized, we prayed, we fought, we resisted, we were here. You do not get the luxury of erasing our life and our legacy from history. We were here. 100 years is long enough for the story of women's suffrage to be whitewashed. Open your eyes to the history of women's suffrage shown in Technicolor. Open your ears and hear their names. Fannie Givens, Georgia Nugent, Alice Nugent, Molly Nugent Williams, Ida B. Nugent, Mary Virginia Cook, Maria Stewart, Mary Ann Carey, Mary Church Terrell, Nanny Helen Barrow, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Ida B. Wells, Daisy Elizabeth Adam Lincoln, who said, "You cannot be neutral. You must either join with us who believe in the bright future or be destroyed by those who will return us to the dark past." And when you remember those names, remember the names of Alberta Jones and Charlena Lyles, Tanisha Anderson, Atiana Jefferson, Rakia Boyd, Sandra Bland, and remember the name of Breonna Taylor. They were all Black. And they were all women. You see, our fight has always been with two hands. So you must know them. You must see them. You must acknowledge them. They were here, and we are here. And together, it's the only way that we can all stand and achieve freedom.
Powerful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Simply powerful.
Thank you.
I don't even know what question to ask you behind that one.
I think I really wanted to, and that piece was commissioned by the Fraser Museum for women's, the 100th year of women's suffrage. And one thing I love about the Frasers, if they ask me to write something, they just let me do what I do. And I couldn't write a piece and pat women on the back when we know that women have been erased from the women's suffrage movement, Black women. Yeah. And I'm currently working on a project in Louisville called the Unknown Project. And I wanted to, Fraser's a partner in Roots 101. We wanted to highlight the names of Black people that were enslaved in Louisville. And so many of these stories and names, as I start learning the history, have just been buried, intentionally hidden from history. And when I went to the lynching museum in Alabama, you know, I was determined to take a picture of every pillar from Kentucky. And sometimes on these pillars were etched the word unknown. And I thought, how can someone exist in this world and be unknown? Somebody knew them at some point. They had a name. And I felt in writing that piece, it was the same thing that was done historically that this city was trying to do currently with Breonna Taylor. Her name would have just been hidden and buried. You know, Breonna Taylor was murdered March 13th. The protest for Breonna Taylor didn't start until the end of May. So there's this space and time where her name was virtually unknown to the world. And leadership in this city didn't bother to unearth it and didn't bother to speak the truth, to bring this name to light. It was the people that said, hold on a minute. There was this Black woman that was killed in Louisville, Kentucky, and we need to be saying her name, not just the names of George Floyd, not just the names of Ahmaud Arbery, and those, trust me, so important. George Floyd, I can't even, it broke my heart. But we have to remember in this fight against police brutality that Black women are a part of this story, and they can't be hidden any longer. And what has been done historically and currently in Louisville simply can't be hidden any longer. I'm a firm believer, and this sounds poetic, but the blood will cry out. It will cry out from beneath the earth. And Breonna Taylor was just crying out. And there are so many Black people that were enslaved here that are just crying out from unmarked graves. I stood at Goshen Farm in the cemetery. I was invited by Eleanor Bingham to Goshen Farm, and she said, I want to show you this cemetery. She took me out here, and I said, how did you know?
Eleanor Bingham, the novelist.
Yes. How did you know this was a cemetery? And she said she rides horses out there, and the horses never wanted to go in this area. So she called an archaeologist, and they started digging, and lo and behold, over 100 headstones start surfacing. That they believe that there are over 100 people that were enslaved in this cemetery. Unmarked graves, just rocks, no names. Who are these people? No names. And I believe these people just cry out. Somebody acknowledge that we were here. How do you exist in a world and it's like you were never here? You know, and that's what would have happened. It happened historically, and that's what would have happened with Breonna Taylor. And it's our job to unearth the stories and tell the stories.
Yeah. let me tell you, my that story, that observation, that experience you had has happened all over.
Yes.
And I had an office on 17th and Jefferson Street. There's a cemetery there,
Mm, mm, mm.
and we own that building there. I had a law office there for 20 years. Behind that building is a field. It's a continuation of the cemetery. No headstones, no nothing.
Mm.
Guess who's there?
Our people.
Yeah,
Our people.
same thing.
Yeah.
So oh wow, well, wow. Let me shift gears a little bit. We're doing poetry, and we couldn't get out of it because you've done so much in that area. If I kept going, I could just start listing stuff because I've looked at that. But you're a novelist.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of books out. Name some of them. Give us some names.
You know, I have a lot of poetry books, but I wrote 2 novels. One is called Views from the Back Pew, and one is called Fragile Destiny.
Okay.
And I wrote a commentary, you know, on race and politics called Dear America, I'm Still Rooting for You, because
Yeah.
I am. I live here. I'm still going to root for America. And then I wrote my last book. Here it is. I have it here. My last book. This is my best selling.
Hold that up a little bit. Hold it up. Let me see that. Dear white women, it's not you, it's me. I'm breaking up with you. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I think there's a message there.
Yeah. I was just I said I'm putting this book together, and that most of them are commentary on race and feminism, the intersections, and how we, you know, we continue to stumble over each other. A lot of white women reached out to me and said, Hannah, please don't break up with me. And I said, I'm not going to break up with you, but I needed to write it in such a way that would make you think. You know?
So look, how, before we go further, how does one get your material? How do they get this poetry? How do they get these books? How do they, I know about the blog. How do we get to the blog? I mean, let's talk about books and poetry.
A lot of my books are at Carmichael, so that's local, you know, and especially during the pandemic and everything, we're trying to support local. So certainly support local. To go to Carmichael on Frankfurt Avenue, they have them, and they're all of them are on Amazon.
So Amazon's a way to do it, in Carmichael.
Yeah, Carmichael's. Yep.
Okay,
and my blog, so if you go to my website, it's Hannah L. Drake. A lot of people forget the L, but that's it, hannahLdrake.com. My blog is on there, videos, poetry people can listen to, all the things. Yep.
Now you know you set yourself up. What does that L stand for?
Louise.
All right, I was going to say that too. Anna Louise. We got
Anna Louise.
HLD. Yeah, we got you. So you perform.
Yeah.
And I've seen you perform in several places. In fact, you performed in my home.
Yeah.
I think that's how we met, or we met just before that or something, some years back. So how does one get into where you're going to be at a given time? Is there a web or what?
I haven't really put that since the pandemic, because it's been so funny, you know, with traveling, and I've not done any traveling, but I try to post on my Facebook where I'll be, and you can watch it online. And so like next, I think it's Wednesday on the 31st with Fraser Museum and the city will be talking about a Women's History Month, and I believe I'm reciting that poem, or either they're going to show it and I'll discuss it.
Yeah.
And so if people go to my Facebook, I try to keep all the things and activities I'm doing on there.
So Facebook is a good.
Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. Yep.
Just look for Hannah Drake's page.
Yep.
Hannah L. Drake.
Hannah L. Drake.
It's Hannah Louise Drake. That's not
Hannah
it.
Louise.
Hannah L. Hannah L. Drake. Okay. Well, let me tell you something. I've completely enjoyed this exchange. I hope I didn't say much, because you had a lot to say, and it was.
You were wonderful. I hope I didn't say too much.
you gotta make a promise.
Yes.
You got to come back.
I will certainly come back. Thank you for having me.
Come back, and you got to come back when you got something exciting to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would love to. Love to.
That energy is infectious, and
thank you.
I think it's good. Hannah, I just want to tell you, and I'll just say this publicly. I just think, along with many, I see someone has referred to you as the Picasso. I said the Picasso. I said I can go with that.
Thank
Um, that you're the Picasso of language. That you have this perfect gift. You know, some people, everybody's got a gift,
Yeah,
and folks don't have the same gifts, but you
right.
have one that is clear and abundant, and you've expressed it, and you're using it so wonderfully. It's a gift to us. I just
Thank
got
you.
to tell you.
Thank you
I
so
think
much.
your creative talent is outrageously, outrageously valuable. And I
Thank
encourage
you.
you to, I'm throwing every vibe I can
Thank
to you with respect to that, and encourage everyone else to reach out to your work because it is powerful. I read a lot. I read a lot of poetry. I read a lot of uh, books and anything that interests me out here. And I have to tell you, I keep going back. My problem with you is you got so much stuff out there. The stuff that I've been looking at is so deep and powerful. I don't want to move on. I want to go back to it. And it's that powerful. And there's not
you.
much that I go back to when I deal with that. And I just gotta tell you, it's had an effect. And that's why I've been reaching out so frequently, persistently to get you on, because I think more people need to really get exposed to your work. It's really extraordinary.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do.
So we're gonna get you back, folks. You all heard it. She just
I'll be
committed
back.
to come back. Now we don't know when. I'm telling you, Hannah's difficult now. I got to tell you, I'm about to catch her in the street and drag her back here. But she, you see what I'm talking about. I don't have to go into the details of that. You can see it by those things that we posted up, and just the conversation. That level of commitment and involvement is just extraordinary and infectious. I'm gonna use that word.
Thank you.
That should inspire anyone who's looking at it. I want to say to you that we enjoy the fact that you view in. We try to share different types of things. We're not just talking about politics. We're not just talking about mean things. Sometimes it's very light, and we have the youth expressing ourselves. But you know, I have to tell you, it's times like these when we deal with these special creative forces. You hear what I just said? Creative forces that is really inspiring to me personally, and I know it was inspiring to you as well. So I want to thank you for tuning in with us again this week. And I want to ask you to come back and join us again. I want to thank our guest, Hannah L. Drake, for being with us. And I want to say to you, as I say every week, always do the right thing. And good evening.